Quality is an important consideration in education. What is quality education? What are the elements of quality education? And what is the importance of quality education? These are important questions that we will briefly respond to in this presentation. So first, what is quality education? Generally, quality education is a multifaceted concept, or you can say it's a complex concept. This is mainly because there are various ways in which people look at and examine the concept of education in terms of quality assurance. So there are those who focus on, for example, the quality dimension of education in terms of looking at the aims of education. So, for example, they consider education as quality education that has clear aims and that achieves those aims clearly and concretely. Then there are those who focus on the process of education as a dimension or as an indication of quality. So if the processes involved in education are quality processes, for example, the curriculum development and implementation processes are clear and specific to the point, that is something that will indicate the quality of education. Thirdly, there are those who focus on the outcomes of education or the ultimate ends of education. So for them, education will be quality education if the process ultimately leads to the achievement of the outcomes in the form of the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of graduates that we get as a result of the educational process. So overall, we can say that the quality of education will be determined by its fitness for purpose, or in other words, if the purpose is clearly laid out and that purpose is ultimately achieved towards the end of the educational process, that will mean that quality education has taken place. So to conclude, we can say that quality education is education that has clear and systematic and focused aims and the processes of education, and ultimately it leads to outcomes that are in line with the aims and objectives of the educational process, and that are focused in terms of the policies which actually leads to education as a process and as an outcome. Now, the second question is, what are the elements of quality education? So again, as we know that the educational process generally involved an element of input, an element of process, an element of output, and an element of evaluation. So we can say that the quality education will have those elements. So the first element of quality education will be the quality of inputs. And the inputs will be in the form of learners, for example. That's one of the inputs. So what kind of students are getting into the education system at particular levels, for example, at the primary level, at the secondary level, and at the tertiary level. That is something, the quality of those learners will determine the quality of education. Secondly, the learning environments inside educational institutions is another important element. And so the resources, which include, for example, the curriculum, the teachers, and the other infrastructure and facilities, so the quality of those will ultimately impact the quality of education. The second element of the quality education is the quality of processes, which is like implementation, or you can say the implementation of the curriculum, for example, pedagogical practices is something that will determine the quality of education. Thirdly, the quality of outputs, which is like the products or outcomes in the form of the learning that the learners have, or the skills that they develop, or the attitudes that they have at the end of the educational process. So the quality of products in terms of the quality of graduates that we have is something that will impact the quality of education. And lastly, the quality of the evaluation systems. Evaluations generally help us in determining the success or failure, or the degree of success or failure of the educational process. So therefore, good quality assessments will help us in determining the quality of the whole educational process right from the beginning, including the input, the process, and the output. Therefore, quality assessments in terms of authentic evaluation and examination systems will ultimately help improve the quality of education. Now, the third question that we need to briefly respond to is regarding the importance of quality education. So why is it that we should have quality education rather than just education? So the first thing is that quality education is important, first of all, for learners, because learners, that is students, invest a lot in the educational process in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of energies, and they have aspirations to get successful as a result of the educational process. Therefore, good quality education is first of all in the interest of the learners, and it is important for learners to get good quality education. Secondly, importance of educational institutions. The very existence of educational institution depends on their promise to get to provide good quality education to the learners, to the society. So as a result, it is important for the justification of the very existence of educational institutions to provide quality education. Thirdly, stakeholders such as parents and society and the state are important stakeholders, and it is important for them to get quality education as a product of the investment that they have in the education of their young, that is the children or the citizens or members of the society. So for parents and society and the state at large, it is important that educational institutions provide quality education. Next, on a larger level, as the world is becoming a global village and we are becoming global citizens. So the quality of education, even in remote areas around the world, will have a global impact because of the increasing interdependence of states and societies. So quality education has a global importance. Next, justification of the educational process. So as I said, educational institutions need to justify their existence. So the same is the case with the whole process or the whole enterprise of the educational process and the educational infrastructure. It can be justified only when the graduates that we get as a result of the educational process are productive. And then we need to understand that quality education generally has a huge role in the overall socio-economic development and progress of the society around us. On the other hand, low quality education will have a negative impact on our overall socio-economic development. Lastly, quality education is important because quality education will ultimately help us in bringing in more equity, peace, justice in the society, because the members of the society become productive, they become economically, socially independent, they contribute positively to the progress of the society, and that will ultimately result in more equity, in more peacefulness, and in a more just distribution of the socio-economic resources in the society.